Good evening, everyone. Welcome back then to another LFM stream here for the season finale, round number 12. Time flies by when you're having fun, and we are at a fantastic location, or even perfect with that, the auto cue giving us the name on screen. Mount Panorama, of course, the Bathurst race circuit, the formidable mountain itself, which has given us some of the greatest races that we have had in the Case King Pro Series. And I have no doubt that going into the finale of Season 11 that we are going to be presented with just that today, because we have 90 minutes of action this evening around this incredible circuit where there is every challenge, every trial and tribulation that will possibly be thrown at these drivers, because it is a true hardcore circuit. It is a beautiful thing when you nail a lap around here, but if you start to disrespect some of those track limits, if you start to flirt with the edges of the circuit a little bit too much, it will certainly bite you. And unfortunately, when it does, it can be rather dramatic, but it keeps us on the edge of our seats the whole way through, much like the rest of the season has done. But what a way to bring this all to a finale. Of course, last week, where we had our Season 11 champion crowned, Tinko Van der Velde ended up taking the championship crown with a round 2 spare in exceptional fashion from him. And Marco Bischoff, of course, the two-time Pro Series champion, now returning to the number 1 step on the LFM platform, wearing that number 1 plate with a great deal of pride, also returned to the top step of the podium with a fantastic victory ahead of Grantis Carecas and Marco Yonkers to round out that podium. And going into this race, whilst the first place spots may be all sorted and taken care of, P2, P3 could be a little bit more up for grabs, and there are some fantastic prizes that these drivers are still going to be competing for. So lots of things on the line, and of course, if nothing else, just rounding out the season, if you can take victory around Bathurst race circuit, that's a pretty big statement to make heading into Season 12. And speaking of Season 12, whilst we have some business to be finishing up in Season 11, do hang around to the end of the stream, because we are going to be giving you a little bit of insight and news into what is on the horizon. Of course, there are certain things that we've already unveiled and teased with regards to Season 12, but do stick around at the end so I can share with you some exciting things of what lies ahead in the coming weeks, because it is looking very exciting and I can't wait to get underway. But I also can't wait to get my teeth stuck into an evening of action at Bathurst race circuit, because there's not too many things that are better than that. So let's talk a little bit about the circuit specifically, as I, for one last time of the season, cue the wrong transition just to make sure that we keep up the theme from start to finish. Might as well finish the way that we started with this fantastic circuit. Over 6 kilometers in length, 23 turns of motorsport goodness through L corner, certainly starting you off with a little bit of a scare. Work your way up through mountain into quarry, through the cutting, and then as you keep on climbing over the very fast corner of McPhillamy Park down into Skyline. We saw Florio Duakop almost throw away his one victory in the Pro Series a couple of seasons ago with an incident on that part of the circuit in the penultimate lap, and you make your way through the S's, through the Dipper, Forest Elbow, every single one of those corners. The car is constantly going away from you at the front end as you keep on dipping down into the undulation. You get the compression and you get the grip back again, but pacing yourself through the flow of those corners is a very tricky thing to do indeed, and it really does require a very delicate and precise level of control. But I tell you what, when we go on board with some of these drivers, delicate and precision is not really what we're going to see on board with these GT3 cars, because the best of the best, they will be thrashing them around this circuit and really hustling their way over top of the mountain. Maybe a little bit more of a element of caution to some extent when we make our way into the race, because of course one mistake and it can all be done and dusted for your evening right there and then. But in qualifying, you've got a little bit more freedom to maybe get it wrong from time to time, so expect to see some pretty big moments through there. We should be making our way into the server in just a moment, as hopefully if the server will appear for me. It's not looking very good so far. Well, hopefully we'll just hang about for a couple of minutes and we'll be able to get underway very shortly. But obviously, when we start this off, as we so often say, when these drivers have their last bits of practice, there's a couple of ways you can go about it, and you know, for this circuit in particular, I think it is ever more important for drivers to really dial in their confidence in terms of race trim, because it just can change your race so severely, so quickly if you get it wrong, because all it takes is one tap of the barrier. And the nature of these circuits, if you get it wrong in one corner, the chances are that you might get fired off into about 3 different barriers along the way before you eventually come to a stop. So getting that confidence dialed in before they head into a race session, that is going to be absolutely critical. I also do want to say a big thank you, because we hit a couple of amazing milestones during the space of the last week over on the YouTube channel, of course, which we have moved away from in terms of the live streams, but the VODs for all of these Twitch streams are being uploaded if you wish to relive all of the sim racing goodness that we have had over the last few weeks. And we hit 3,000 subscribers over there, so thank you ever so much for the support. And also we surpassed, as of yesterday, the 500 follower mark here on the Twitch channel, which, considering that I think we've had this channel now running for about 6 weeks, is absolutely incredible. And just a massive thank you and a warm welcome to the continuing growth that we have over here, with people joining every single week. And the server has just fired up, so we shall make our way over and see how our drivers are going to be getting on. Also, don't actually know whether or not the drivers will be looking at anything in terms of rain for this evening. I have a bit of a gander at the weather report. It's not impossible, maybe not massively likely, but there could be some elements of rain on the horizon, which I think it takes this challenge of driving around the mountain for 90 minutes in one of the most competitive grids on ACC that you can find, and would just make it that bit harder. So there'll be some drivers, depending on how the BOP is faring for their car, that may wish for the rain. They may want the chaos, because that's maybe the way that they expect that they may make their way through the field. But I imagine, in the grand scheme of things, just for the sake of trying to make it to the end of the race, that the vast majority will be hoping that we have dry conditions throughout, because this circuit is enough of a challenge at the best of times. We did get a little bit of an inkling going into this one that the McLarens might look quite good around this circuit, and I imagine that will be partly due to the same sort of qualities and characteristics that we saw at Imola, we saw at Paul Ricard, and that is because they're an absolute weapon in a straight line. They can get away with running extremely low aero and still being very stable, and down the mountain and through the Conrod Straight and into the chase, you can very much open up some opportunities overtaking wise when you have that straight line speed, and gives you a very helpful natural element of competitiveness in the race, and means that you don't have to perhaps work quite so hard around some of the other parts of the circuit, because over that top section of the mountain, it is borderline impossible to make an overtake. You have to be so far alongside someone to even entertain the thought that usually, frankly, the prospect is too terrifying in a racing situation to even realistically go for it. So main overtaking opportunities are sometimes down in towards turn 1, also up into turn 2 as well, before you begin the main climb through there. But that has to be on the inside line, because there's so much camber, there's just no grip on the outside, so that's where you really need to be. So very much limited overtaking opportunities around here, and straight line speed is going to be a must for these drivers if they want to make progress through the field. We'll be switching over in just a second as I dial in the final bits and pieces of the overlays. And there we go, and bish bash bosh, and I think we can have a little bit of a look at how our drivers are getting on. And speaking of the McLarens, Grantis Caracas, who, of course, the previous champion of the Case King Pro Series, a fantastic young man who still, right now, holds the record for the most number of wins in a single season. Tinko Van der Velde is trying to equalise that this evening, because that was one of the Lamborghinis having a little bit of shenanigans in the background, and I think that's just immediately given us a taster of what we could be anticipating for tonight's action. But Grant Korekes had a fantastic season last time in Season 10 when he was still utilising the Porsche. Hasn't quite found himself in as much of a comfy spot as we're used to seeing for the Lithuanian driver. Of course, the young, I think 17-year-old now, still plenty of time for him to develop and grow as a driver, and a young talent that was plucked out of the sim racing community, of course, from Veloce, and rightly so, because he has proven time and time again to be up there with some of the very best. But we've only just started to kind of really see this sort of reinvigorated form of Korekes in the last couple of races. He got that podium last time out, and that was the first time that we've really seen him once again kind of, it felt like we were seeing a bit more of the old version of Korekes. With the McLarens being fairly competitive tonight, will we see him take a victory around the mountain? Because if nothing else, although it may not have been the best season for him, that would certainly put a smile on his face. I think he'd be pretty happy to close that one out and use that as a statement of intent going into Season 12. Right now is Veloce 1, 2, and 3, with the man that says P2 in the championship standings. Of course, has been Tinko's main rival for the entirety of this season. George Boothby, one of the winningest drivers in the Pro Series. This is the first time that he's really made a proper charge for the title for the entire season, but Tinko has just been in absolutely formidable form. It all came to quite a dramatic climax at the end of last race, because we had George Boothby trying to hold on to some hopes of going for the championship, and then Tinko Van der Velde was scrapping away for the race win with Marco Bischoff. Korekes, there was a coming together, Nils Narks, and there was a coming together in the closing stages of that race. Tinko went off the circuit, and then also later on in that race, we had an unfortunate bit of contact between Jardier and the man that is on your screen at the moment, which sent George Boothby back down the field, somehow finishing behind Tinko, and whilst Tinko had a pretty comfortable position coming into that penultimate round in terms of the championship situation, it certainly did cement his winning position and taking the title, but it did remove that opportunity the instant he was involved in to go for a record-breaking 7 wins. More than 50% win rate was what he was targeting. He'll still be trying to hit that 50% if he can get 6th win under his belt today, but from what we understand, it may be a bit tricky in that Audi, because he's going to have to run a lot of rear wing on that car. It does have good grunt, but in order to keep it stable over the top of the mountain, he's going to have to be going at the pointy end of the spectrum when it comes to the aero on that car. And I have a feeling, unfortunately, it's a little bit of the internet at this end. I do apologise. I think we've got some fluctuations in terms of the picture. I may, in fact, actually look to lower the bit rate slightly, because it is looking like it's not the greatest. So do bear with me a moment. I shall try to do that on the fly. And, of course, it's going to be one of those things where... Actually, can I change it on the fly? I may be able to change it on the fly. Let's try that, and hopefully that doesn't annihilate anything too much. It looks like the stream is still alive and well. We'll go with that. Hopefully that might be a bit more stable. The picture quality may drop a bit, but hopefully that'll be a little bit better. Fingers crossed. I do apologise for that, everybody. But thankfully, if nothing else, whilst there may be a couple of frame drops from time to time, that we do have some of the best action here on ACC that you can get. And this man, Marco Bischoff, like I say, the 2-time Pro Series champion, in his #1 plated Lamborghini, a car that he has been adapting to over the course of season 11. It all finally came good for the German driver last week, where he was able to take his first victory in quite a while. He's looking like he's got a bit of a snazzy livery on board that car tonight. Let's see if we can get a bit of a close-up with Marco Bischoff's car there. The K. Kramer Racing Esports livery car. I can't actually quite tell if that is a custom livery or if that's something in-game. But one way or another, certainly has got the traditional red, black, and white colour scheme that we are used to seeing the German sporting. And this car should be pretty handy around here as well. I do believe last season when we were at Bathurst, and this new Lamborghini, because we had the whole wave of new generation cars making their way into ACC. We had the Porsche 992, the Ferrari 296, and then the Lamborghini Evo 2. But Teemu Karppinen ended up taking the race win around the mountain in a pretty spectacular fashion. So this car looking like it could also be quite competitive. And good news, glad to hear it. Hopefully that will be a little bit more stable for the duration of the stream. If things do start to go wonky, do let me know, and I shall try to make things a bit better. But hopefully we shall be good to go for the rest of this stream. Granted, Krekas will be the first driver out on circuit, and I think we will look to go for a little bit of a cheeky onboard with the number 2 McLaren, because this car looking quick. We know Grantus is very quick, and I think that it's going to be a pretty fantastic onboard experience in that one, because this McLaren, surprisingly, even though it has a fantastic aero package, really where it's going to make its time up is the straights. It's still going to be pretty good around over the mountain. I think it'll be stable, but I don't necessarily think it's going to be the quickest of cars. The few, I think we've got a couple of Ferraris in the server, 296s, I think will be pretty good over the top here, as long as they're not struggling too much with the bumps. But that's the downside of both the McLaren and the Ferrari. They've got a lot of downforce, they've got a lot of cornering capability, but their stability, when we have this undulation, when we have these compressions and the bumps of this rather, well, like I say, fundamentally hardcore proper driver circuit, it's not quite as ironed out, perfectly flat as a lot of the modern ones that we see being put together. This is, we stuck some tarmac on the side of a cliff, and this is what we got. And unsurprisingly, that does come with a few bumps that make its way into the track surface, and that can give these drivers a little bit of a difficult time in hustling these cars around. So it'll be very interesting to see how it translates over, and how the confidence translates over the course of one lap versus a race distance. But we'll go on board with last season's champion, and he's trying to look to end this season on a high. There's Grantus Krekas in the number 2 McLaren. Can he get another pole position to his name? He's had many here in the Case King Pro Series, and now heading off into Turn 1 Hell's Corner, really setting you up for exactly the challenge that you have ahead of you, digging the car into the camber. So important in these opening series of corners to use the tarmac and that camber in the corner to hook you round and carry that momentum up the hill. Now doing what the McLaren does best around this circuit, and flying up towards Turn 2 at Griffin's Bend, all the way over to the left-hand side, then tuck it into that camber once more. That's why there's no grip on the left-hand side. There's such a big camber difference from that inside line to the outside line, back across the right side of the circuit, as close to the wall as you dare, and through into the cussing. And you just have to hope that when you're in a race that there's nothing blocking your way on the other side, because you have very little time to react. Now, look at this, through in towards Turn 6, then into Turn 7, over the crest briefly, then back down again, in through Turn 8, over through Froghello, onto Turn 9. You can barely say the names quick enough as you then head into McPhillamy Park. Big commitment there from McLaren. Don't go too wide on the exit there, because it will bite you. And now you make your way through, over Skyline, in towards the S's and the Dipper as you go through the compressions, trying to get the nose tucked in as close to the walls as you can, but not too close, otherwise you'll end up in quite a bit of danger very imminently. And then tricky one through Forest Well, watch out for the the barrier that juts out on the left hand side of the circuit then, because you look like you're going to hook the apex up nicely there and either safe through to the rest of the corner, but that part of the barrier does jut out. Now this McLaren flying back down the back straight in towards the chase, using all of the track on the left-hand side, trying to open up the braking zone in towards Turn 21. Now hard on the brakes in the McLaren, doesn't get stopped the easiest. It has a little bit of this understeer characteristic under brakes, not as bad as its previous generation model, but still a tricky one to hone in, and then through into Murray's Corner to hook up the last part of the lap. High curbs through there is not where the McLaren wants to be, but it's a 59.3 for the opening attempt from Krekas, but these lap times are going to start coming through thick and fast. Jardier, his teammate, slots into P2. I saw him, I think, teasing on Twitter that he was very much looking to go for the win, but I tell you what, the Veloce crew, someone was saying they were looking quick, and indeed they are. 2 purple sectors for Aidan Walsingham and a 59.1. He was top of the timing sheets, I do believe, in practice, and he has very much kept that up going into this session as well. So can we see Walsingham, who has taken a race wins in the past in the Case King Pro Series, made the move relatively recently to Veloce, I think the latest acquisition to their ACC crew, and has shown glimmers of pace and has demonstrated on occasion, what talent was it they spotted in the British driver. But he hasn't quite hooked it up in one of these Pro Series races. Maybe Bathurst is the circuit for him. Look at the camera angles around here, close to the barrier as you like. We've gone from one Veloce McLaren to the other, but I can't help but look at some of these pictures, because look at that, absolutely flying over top of the mountain and then into Skyline. Like I say, this was where Florian Duacop, penultimate lap of the race, the Unicorns of Love driver, about, I think, 3 or 4 seasons ago now, was leading by something ridiculous, about 25 to 30 seconds. He had a very, very comfortable spot, came through McPhillamy Park, clipped the grass, and then went straight into the wall on the entry to Skyline, bounced off one wall, somehow kind of 180 to get the momentum going down into the S's, but the front end of his Mercedes was absolutely crumpled, and he was being honed in on by Grantis Korekis and I believe Marco Bischoff, it may have been, at a massive rate of knots, and he trundled his way to the line with about 3-second lead to spare, and gave rise to one of the best endings to a race in the Pro Series that we have ever had. But time's continuing to tumble, but I tell you what, Jardier is looking formidable right now, a 58.9 from the number 4 car, and 2 purple sectors to go with it. Aidan Walsingham improving, but he's not going to be able to get close to that time, a tenth and a bit separating him from the beloved streamer that right now sits at the top of the timing sheet. So what a way it would be for him to wrap up the season if he could get a pole position, maybe even a victory. He does love this place. I've actually had the pleasure of having a couple of fun battles with the man himself, and on that occasion I very much put into practice kind of the elements of the McLaren that I was talking about earlier, because I was in the previous generation Lamborghini. Don't ask me why, I made terrible choices when I was racing more regularly on ACC, but the one thing that it did do very well was turn into a rocket ship down the back straight, and just lap after lap in the early stages of the race was able to pick off positions and work my way up into the top 10, all the way back from, I think, about 30th on the grid. And that was entirely because I kept it on the black stuff during all the spooky bits, and then I hit the loud pedal better than other cars down the back straight. And that is sometimes around this circuit all you need. Of course, these drivers at the top of their game, they will be able to pick holes in weaknesses of other cars and find those opportunities. But sometimes when you have a circuit layout that is this difficult, even the very best are unable to open up those opportunities and could find themselves stuck behind another car. We saw a good example of that actually at Paul Ricard. Luke Whitehead, upon returning to the series for, I think, a bit of a one-off entry for Season 11, just showed the mighty top speed of that McLaren. He was able to keep back Niels Narks and Tinko Van der Velde lap after lap after lap, and it was only after a bit of a helpful and slightly miscalculated nudge from Niels that kind of rather propelled Tinko in his Audi past the McLaren that the positions were able to swap around in the end, and Tinko to take another victory of the season. So it's very much something that can play into effect in these races, and we've got some bets going on right now about George Boothby maybe heading for a bit of a stormer of a lap. I don't think it's going to be on this occasion because he has got a bit of traffic, but we know how good this man is in that McLaren. He has shown time and time again as to why he is one of the best in the business. Of course, this season's SRO GT Sprint champion, and you know, that is not an accolade that you achieve with anything but exceptional talents, and that's the reason why he was the only driver, really. Marco Bischoff did make a bit of resurgence at the end, but George Boothby was realistically the only man that was able to properly put pressure on Tinko Van der Velde for this entire season. But Tinko has just been something special. George Boothby still pushing on, so I do wonder if he is actually on a lap and he's now trying to use this slipstream of the BMW ahead of him. It's going to be a little bit tricky going into the closing stages of the lap, though. That's not the camera angle I wanted. There we go. On board the front splitter, and he is actually going to be able to make his way past the BMW without being held up into the closing stages of the lap. A little bit deep under braking, though, and that is not going to help the British driver, and he has backed out of that, so he will look to reset, go again. He's got 5.5 minutes on the clock, but that's barely enough time for 2 more laps. And I'll tell you what, Jardier, his sort of sister car teammate, of course, Yassit and Veloce, 2 very closely knitted groups, and Jardier went that bit faster. He's down a purple sector, but he's purple still in the middle and went to a 58.9 dead, and he is a 10th and a half clear of everyone else in this field. This is a remarkable qualifying session for Jardier so far. He's not on a lap at the moment, so we'll just be looking to regather himself, maybe go for one more and then put some fresh tyres on at the end. But with what we saw in update 1.9, it is very much the case that you can kind of utilize the tyres in qualifying for at least a couple of laps now. It's not quite so disastrous to kind of, try to do your best effort on your second run. They don't get torn apart quite as much as they used to. A couple of cars into the pits, and one of them being this man, of course, Boris Scholk, the boss man himself, and one of 2 of the major founders involved in Low Fuel Motorsport, of which we owe a great deal to for making all of this possible. And he is joined in the final round, sporting that wonderful LFM livery on the McLaren. So I have to see how he gets on. Hopefully that'll be the one car that I don't commentate occurs, otherwise my job may be jeopardized into Season 12, so we'll see how things progress. Looking back though to our front runners, Jardier getting underway for his next attempt around the circuit. We've got Marco Bischoff just a bit further up on the mountain, improving by a 10th of a second at the moment. Valentin Barry, another one of the Yassit cars, he's found a 10th, heading into the chase and down in towards turn 20. 1 and 2 now. Pretty cautious line through there. I feel like he could have been a little bit more aggressive. Maybe wants to just get his time on the board. It will still be very much up there. Probably around P5, may gain a position, but Bischoff ahead of him is improving as well. So he does, for the time being, go up to P5. But I think Marco Bischoff may be looking to displace that one pretty soon. Sasha Vasta's found a couple of tenths in that big, bad, brutal Mercedes. A car that typically has run very well here in the past. But I think with the way that BOPs have evolved and changed over time, as yellow flag for Aidan Walsingham, who's gone into the wall and immediately heads back to the pits so that he can then head back out and get one more lap in. And sometimes you do have to make those rather cutthroat decisions. If you bail out of a lap, it might do you good, because if you're only improving by a couple of hundreds, but you've got the pace to find a couple of tenths, try and risk it all at the very end and making up that progress. Oliver Hagstrom in the number 12 STL Esports car, the Swedish driver, having a pretty good season. Actually, has been a little bit of kind of a driver that has lurked in the background mostly, but right now he actually sits behind his STL Esports teammate Albin Manson. The 2 Swedes lock out 8th and 9th in the championship standings, but they do have Jardier right on their heels for that, which, with the way that he is looking at the moment, could be looking to try to jump up a couple of positions in the closing rounds. Have to wait and see on that front. Of course, he hasn't had the greatest of luck for this season. He will be starting what I imagine will be his final attempt. He could theoretically go for 2 more laps, but I'm not sure that realistically he would, because that may be a bit too much out of tyres. Also, you don't want to carry too much fuel on board the car. Eric Del Fanta's just rounded out a lap, but I think he's just setting off to embark on his final bid. Luke Anderson has brought out the yellow flag. He's slowing down to have another attempt. We've got a couple of cars in the pits, so they won't be improving any further. We've got Giovanni Porzio from South Africa, Lucas Egger, Chris Smith, and Alexander Krauk in the number 33 car, who have all retired from the session, so no further improvements from them. I can tell you right now, Jardier is not finding time. He is down already by 2 tenths on his previous best. Will he go for another opportunity? He hasn't got time to cool down the tyres. He's basically got to do 2 qualifying laps back to back if he does want to set another lap time. But right now, he is not finding time. Aidan Walsingham, whereabouts is he? He's just about to embark on what will be his final attempt. Granted, Korekis is on a lap as well. He's up by a 10th. Valentin Barrier has found a 10th. We could see a couple more 58s in the closing stages of this session, but right now, Jardier's lap time of 58.9 dead is still looking like it could be very, very competitive. and crossing the line. Grantis Korekis goes up to the front row, but he's still 59.06, has not found enough time, a 10th and a half. Still the gap between Jardier and Grantis, and that is a big margin around this circuit. And somebody just retired. That was Oliver Hagstrom. I saw go to the pits as well. A couple of more cars going in. And, so there we go. George Boothby is looking to do a last of first challenge around here. That's certainly going to be a brave one for him, because he does rather have that P2 position cemented in the standings. Aidan Walsingham, no, it wasn't Aidan. That was Grantis Korekis, and it does look like he did make contact through there. It looks very, very tight between himself and the Ferrari as he came flying up through turn 2. But Grantis Korekis will not be able to improve to go for pole position. Jardier has started another lap, so he's going to try to go for one more flyer. Eric Del Fanta improves up to the front row, 59.047 for the Italian driver, the man that won out at Massano. Mattia De Campo in the McLaren, 2/10 up for him, looking to see if he can make his way up to the top 6. But right now, Jardier's 58.90, looking like it may be the time that will take pole position unless Mattia continues to improve. He's up by 3/10, 4/10, lose a little bit on the exit from Forest Elbow though. And in fact, it drops down to only a 2/10 up on his delta. So I think it's going to be tricky for the Italian driver to do much more. Marco Bischoff, whereabouts is he on circuit? He's just a bit further along the back straight. He's found a 10th. So it's looking like we may not even see another lap time in the 58s, which is a fantastic effort from Jardier. He's still trying to improve on his previous lap time, and he's there or thereabouts on his delta. It's going to be very, very close. Another car pulls over at the top of the hill. Then Marco Bischoff, last week's race winner, trying to see how much further can he get himself up in the standings. He should be able to improve right now ahead of couple of cars in front. De Campo crosses the line, but I think Marco Bischoff is going to jump up to P5 at the end of that one. Sasha Vastner up by a 10th of a second as well, so is Jan Drexler. He looks to close out the laps, but I think that is fundamentally going to be it. Jardier, who is still on a lap, trying to see if he can find any more time by a 10th and a half. Take a bow, that man. He's not going to improve on this last lap, but a fantastic effort from the smiling sim racer that's I'm sure that'll be a very popular one in his chat, and that is a big margin as well. And that is a driver who of course has so much experience around this circuit on this platform, and it is this sort of circuit that rewards confidence. That is where the time is found. But it's just, and I just rolling on back to what you're saying there, Grizzly. I agree on the front of George Boothby. It's a big ask to do a last of first. I mean, he has got 90 minutes to do it, and anything can happen around the circuit. There is no doubt about that. As just trying to tune in on some of those other elements of the chat. Don't know the position of Bischoff has to finish if Korekis wins to secure third in the championship. I may have to ask some minions to do some calculations for me. I can try to do some quick ones, but looking outside, so Grantis Korekis right now sits on 11,280 points. He has got a 2-0 scores to his name at the moment. So, of course, right now, the amount that he scores will immediately, unless it's another 0 score, which fingers crossed it is not, for Grantis' benefit, that if he were to win, that would be 1,400 points added to his total. That would put him on 12,680. Right now, Marco Bischoff sits on 12,446. His worst result of the season was 884 points. So he needs to be looking at, I think, around a P5, P6 finish, if I could do some clarity on some of the positions required in terms of the points with that one, but I think it's around that sort of mark. So Grantis Korekis, if he wins, Marco Bischoff would have to be looking at still a pretty decent result, I do believe, and That sounds about right. Yeah, so P7 then would be what Marco Bischoff would need. So still very much on the line for Marco, but of course he is in very good form right now, and he sits a couple of positions behind Grantis, who has some very quick McLarens in front of him. So I have to see how they get on, and we will look through the grid in just a moment and see exactly how our drivers line up for the final race of season 11. What a championship it has been. It has been absolutely stellar from start to finish, and I can tell you now that heading into season 12 that I think it will only get better, but we have business still to be wrapping up here, and a fantastic evening of action that lies ahead of us. And we do in fact have the grid overlay already working. How about that? So as just waiting for it to loop round one more time so I can then run through the order, and there we go. So Jardier returns to pole position. It's been a long time since we've seen that man at the front of the grid. Can he take a surprise victory in the last race of the season? What a statement that would be heading into season 12. Del Fanta starts on the front row alongside with him with this flurry of McLaren's Grantis Correcas, trying to see if he can get P3 in the championship, but he'll need a bit more than where he sits at the moment. And he's joined by Aidan Walsingham, his teammate, sitting in P4. Of course, also bearing in mind, Jardier may potentially concede a position at the end to try to help out Grantis. May. I'm not 100% confident, because Jardier, if he's got an opportunity to win around the mountain, I can tell you that he's very much going to be wanting to round off his season with that. So we'll have to see whether or not any team play comes into it. But Marco Bischoff is definitely in a bit more of a solo position in the grand scheme of things than the Veloce Yasheet boys that surrounds him. Working our way to the tail end of the top 10, where we have Bischoff, Barrier, De Campo, Carpenter, Manson, and Oliver Hagstrom getting to that 10th place position. Vasily Onufriev, a man we haven't seen here in a short while, returns to the championship in P11 with Dennis Wietschorker in the number 18 McLaren. There's quite a few of these in the field for this evening. Marco Wong starts in P13 in the BMW, a car that should be relatively rewarding in terms of confidence around here, but ultimate speed may be a little bit lacking in comparison to what we had at the Nürburgring last time around. Sasha Vassner and then Cody Sherritt make up the next two spots to round out the top 15, and then we have Mattia Mex in the number 22 car. I think, was that the Croatian flag? I'm not the best at the flags, I do try my best. But Mattia starting P16. Boris Scholk, the boss man of LFM, in P17 with Jan Drexler in P18. Michael Frey in the number 19 Porsche starts in P19 and has been really kind of the solo runner of that Porsche during this season. And it's a car that, you know, suddenly has dropped out of competition. I remember a few seasons ago where nearly every car on the grid was a Porsche, because that's kind of what you needed to be in order to win. Now we find ourselves in a position where nobody wants to touch it with a barge pole. So Michael Frey, good job from him. And it's a car that doesn't go very well at this circuit anyway, so a good effort from the Swiss driver. Vincent Proel rounds out top 20 with Nico Penn and Sven Port, Jonathan Clifford, Luke Addison for Genesis Esports, who I see some additional support for in the chat. Definitely always fun to cheer on your drivers, show them some love, as they have quite the challenge ahead of them, so they need all the support that they can get. Then we have João Cavaca in the number 30 car. I've got a horrible feeling I butchered the pronunciation of that name. I do apologise. Andreas Rogel in P26. Marco Badowski in 27th. Adam Scott 28th. Tony Mahoney in 29th in the bright blue BMW. Sebastian Krohn, another driver returning to the championship. Last time we saw him, he was in a Mercedes, now sporting the 296. Giovanni Porzio starts in 31st place. Then we have Amar Desiderovic, I believe. We've got quite the crew from Genesis Esports this evening, so great to have them joining us. I think an almost entirely dedicated South African team, if I'm not mistaken. So great to have them representing. We have Eric Trenkelbach in 33rd, Jana Laxon in 35th. Christopher Hoffman in, Dieter Betten in 35th, Christopher Hoffman in 36th. Then we have Lucas Egger in the number 39 car for Visceral Esports, starts in P37. Chris Smith, the next of the BMWs, in the number 40 car. And then Alexander Krauk in the number 33 Ferrari. He starts P39. And then rounding out the grid, a formidable looking McLaren in the hands of George Boothby, the man that sits P2 in the championship and is looking to wrap up this season. That's not the one I wanted. To wrap up this season on a high and wrap up in a little bit better organised fashion, the way that I'm coordinating the stream at the moment. But thankfully, these drivers put on such a dramatic show in the grand scheme of things. Hopefully, people won't notice my own shenanigans too much as we look to close in on the start of this race. 90 minutes of action about to get underway shortly. And these drivers have one of the greatest sim racing challenges, arguably, that you can take on ACC ahead of them. It doesn't matter how long the race distance is here at the mountain. Any distance around here is a tricky one. And with some of the best drivers on ACC, the best on the LFM platform, going toe-to-toe, it is going to be a formidable ask. Jardier is going to head off down towards turn 1 in the lead for the first time in a while. Can he take a victory to round out season 11? We'll have to wait and see, but afterwards, been a fantastic season so far. We're looking to end on high around season 11 for the finale at Bathurst Race Circuit. Jardier heading towards the green lights. Tension building with that group of McLarens and flooring it as they head towards Health Corner. Looks like it's a good start for Jardier. Eric Del Fanta not really able to challenge on the outside. In actual fact, it's Grantis Correcus on the exit of the first turn. They're trying to go side by side. It's going to be a drag race up the hill. Flashing of the lights there from Correcus immediately, and Jardier giving the slipstream to his sister teammate, of course, because he is trying to go for P3 in the standings. Marco Bischoff is jousting with the other sister car, the McLaren of Valentine Barry, but it's Jardier that leads. Grantis Correcus does get into P2, and Marco Bischoff sent to the outside line by Valentine Barry, drops down to P6, and he's got Timo Karppinen hustling all over the back of him in that other Lamborghini as they head up in towards the cutting for the first time. But good start from Jardier, but he's got Grantis Correcus immediately on his gearbox. How much of a fight is Jardier going to put up? We'll have to wait and see, but they fly over through the crest of this circuit for the first time. Look at them all going absolutely nose to tail. McLaren after McLaren in that opening group and flying into Skyline for the first time. These tyres will take a little bit of time to get up to temperature, so you've got to be careful through here as they try to get as close to these walls as they dare. And I tell you what, Grantis Correcus right now looking menacing in that number 2 McLaren. He's almost pushing Jardier along in towards Forest Elbow, but the question is he going to try to go for a move on the first lap? How good is the straight line speed for any of these cars? These McLarens are going to be very evenly matched heading down the Conrad Straight, but it does look like that slipstream is pretty handy and it's giving Correcus the toe that he needs in order to go for an opportunity, and he's looking towards the outside line. Jardier not making it too easy, slightly middle of the road defending from the number 4 car, so he's not going to allow his teammate to run away with this one just yet. Maybe they'll leave any sort of swapping shenanigans until the very end of the race, but right now Jardier at least still leads ahead of Correcus, Del Fanta, Walsingham, Barrier, Bischoff, Karppinen, DeCampo, Hagstrom, Anufriev rounding out your top 10. Some squabbling further down the order between the boss man of LFM, Boris Schultz, trying to go side by side with Marco Wong, now battling for P16 down the inside in towards the first turn. It's going to be pretty close between them. Nico Pennon getting a lovely view of all this one kicking off. In actual fact, I'm looking for them to go side by side, but there's a wide moment for Marco Wong on the exit of turn 1 there, and that's given Pennon the opportunity, but now instead we'll hop on the rear wing of the man from Hong Kong, because right now he's got us at Proel and Drexler side by side on the run up towards turn 2. That BMW Drexler, look, he's got the overlap, but he's on the non-grippy part of the circuit, but he's done a pretty good job of keeping his foot in it. May even still have an opportunity heading in towards the cutting side by side. The Ferrari that almost goes into the wall, catches the marbles, and that will be the position conceded from Proel there, and that is Luke Anderson immediately on the attack in the fellow 296. But it's all kicking off up here. Teemu Karppinen slow up this part of the circuit. He's dropped a position to De Campo in the process. It's kicking off behind with the two STL eSports cars, and Nufriev sends one up the inside of Albin Manson there, and that is not a place where you often see an overtake. Fantastic stuff from the number 15 car. He gets himself up into the top 10 of Bathurst. We've barely been here for 2 minutes and it's already putting on a fantastic show. Let's check in with our race leaders. Jardier versus Carreras up at the front, starting to make a little bit of a breakaway from Del Fanta, sitting in P3. Will go on board this front splitter of Carreras. Jardier very actively just showing that little bit of defense to the Lithuanian driver. So no, he is not making it easy by any stretch of the imagination. Will he just wait to see how the championship situation sits at the very end of the race? If there is an opportunity for Carreras to get up into P3 in the standings, I imagine that Jardier at that point may look to concede the position, but right now it's still game on, because that series of circumstances in terms of Bischoff's position is not where it needs to be, and he does have a 1.5 second buffer to De Campo behind, who's a little bit squirrely on the exit there, and that may actually give Teemu Karppinen the opportunity to do something up towards turn 2. But I think that Lamborghini, despite all the V10 power that is harnessed at the rear of that car, not going to be enough in order to get alongside the McLarens. They're just a little bit too slippery around this circuit, very fast in a straight line. And that was where we saw the contact between Carreras and one of the other Fries in the field in qualifying. Fingers crossed we won't see something like that replicated again. But that gap between De Campo and Bischoff is opening out. 1.6 seconds now in just a few seconds of corners. And of course, that top 6 group is going to drag themselves along a bit, because they've got those fast runners at the very lead portion of that group. And they are going to be giving one another a very nice slipstream. And that is going to accumulate. So Bischoff right now just staying calm and collected. He'll know what the score is. He'll know what needs to be done. And Teemu Karppinen making a mistake there. That Lamborghini, of course, last season's race winner around here. And there's Oliver Hagstrom into the wall. Vasily Nufriev says thank you very much and makes his way past. Will there be a steward's inquiry into that one? I'm not sure, but that was very awkward there, and a big, heavy bit of contact, but it's not as big as what I think Lucas Egger has just had in that number 39 car around at the top portion of the mountain, just ahead of Skyline. We're trying to see if we can catch a replay here. Does he make the mistake all by himself? He has got cars around him, a few scuff marks on board that BMW already prior to the spin. Makes his way in towards McPhillimies. He's going to run wide. Oh, it's all over the curb on the entry, and everybody, do they just about manage to get through? Thankfully, he does a rather dainty 720. Just about manages to get the car stopped before it does move in towards the barrier on the left-hand side. And it gets back underway again, but we've got some swapping of positions at the tail end of the order as well. I think that was Giovanni Porzio and Christopher Hoffman. It's still kicking off on the run towards the first turn. Very close across the line, looking towards the inside line now. The Genesis Esports car, Lamborghini, trying to see if he can make his way past the number 38 car, but he can't on this occasion. Where is George Boothby in all this? He's up to P32. Think it looks like by the surface of his car that he's kept it relatively clean in the grand scheme of things, so hopefully no damage for him, although Jardier has been overtaken in that battle for the race lead. Let's see if we can catch what happened there for Jardier to concede the position to Grantis Carreras, and it has already been done. So prior to the run up the hill, when I flicked over to the leaderboard, I could have sworn that he was still ahead. I'm not sure whereabouts that moment took place, and if it was down towards turn 1 for a mistake at the end of the other sector. It was a slightly slow lap for him last time around, 6/10 down. So Grant Carreras has made the move and got himself up into the race lead, and now for Marco Bischoff, it gets it a little bit tighter in terms of the championship as to whether or not he'll be able to hold on to that P3 position. Jardier, though, still lurking in the slipstream, and it was down into that chicane. So unfortunately, when we're looking at all the chaos taking place over the top of the mountain, we missed the swap for the lead. But Carreras then leads ahead of Jardier, this fleet of McLarens, with that one Lamborghini of Marco Bischoff hanging on to the end. But right now, Carreras in the lead, Marco Bischoff P6, and that is a position that is still good enough for him to retain P3 in the championship. It doesn't look like Jardier has given up on trying to take the position back away from Carreras, because until Matty DeCampo took it away from him, he set the fastest lap of the race, only by a couple of hundredths, bear in mind. But he is once again in hot pursuit of Carreras. And sometimes, when the pressure is on around a circuit like this, all of the experience that Jardier has will start to come into play and maybe open up some opportunities. They head in towards the mountain section, and we'll keep an eye when they next head back towards the Conrod Straight and the chase. We've got Jan Laxon under pressure from George Boothby, who's continuing his chance through the field. He gets towards the inside line. I think George Boothby will get the move done here down the inside. Boothby goes and up into the top 30 as he progresses and continues to move forward up the standings. And stream is still a little bit laggy. Okay, I shall try to make it. Okay, I think hopefully we are back up and running. I can see that my internet has absolutely nothing to work with, and I can only apologise, everybody. I've lowered the stream quality and bitrate as much as I can to hopefully get you some sort of form of vague picture, but I do appreciate that it's not really up to scratch, so I do apologise on that front. Hopefully it will sort itself out for the rest of this race, and I shall keep you posted on everything that we have going on. Since that we had the dropout, not too much has happened. Del Fanta reclaiming a spot and position over Sven Poor as he tries to recover his way up the field. We will also actually have a bit of a look at the stewards' inquiries in just a moment to see what they are doing at this point in time, because they have had quite the number of incidents to deal with, and I'm sure that they are going to be rather busy in this one. Do also want to keep an eye on Matty DeCampo versus Timu Carbon in here. It's all got very busy at the pointy end of the grid. Grant Carreras, though, leading by a second over Jardier. Marco Bischoff 8 seconds behind that group, but crucially for him, he is in P3, and for Grantis' hopes of getting P3 in this championship, that is not what he would have wanted. Somehow that entire incident has actually somewhat benefited Marco Bischoff. He has a 2.2 second gap to Valentin now, so he does have a little bit of a buffer, and I have to see whether or not he wants to repair the damage later down the line as they fly once more down into the S's and the diff. But it gets increasingly difficult to keep the car under control when you have any damage on board the car. Also, if you have tyre wear in play as well, it can be a very, very tricky thing to wheel the car around this circuit. If people could give me some indication of how things are at the moment, I don't imagine they're too great, but I'm hoping that they might at least be a little bit better, then that would be lovely, and I can only apologise. Matty DeCampo now trying to make a move on Valentin. Barrier has got the move done in towards the left-hander under braking then, and Valentin with the damage on board. The front splitter of that McLaren does drop down the order a little bit. Defensive from the Italian to stop the number 9 McLaren from reclaiming the position, but he does get himself up into P4. But that battle for the podium, I have to see. You see DeCampo just about 2 or so seconds away from Marco Bischoff up ahead in the Lamborghini, so it will be a case of how much damage is on board Marco's car, how much is it going to be compromising his race pace, his consistency and his confidence around this circuit. Boris Schulk made up a move not too long ago, get himself up into P11, up 6 positions for the German driver. And as they head up in towards that top portion of the circuit, Carpenter's made the move stick onto Valentin Barrier now, so the Frenchman continuing to drop positions, and I think the damage on board that McLaren is pretty hefty. We'll try to catch a replay of what took place there between the Lamborghini, and you can see climbing up the hill, the straight line speed of that McLaren, as soon as you get aerodynamic damage on board either the McLaren or the Ferrari, it does very much start to hamper their straight line speed capabilities, and in the end, an easy move for the Finnish driver who gets himself into P5 for the number 5 car. So good stuff from Teemu. Then, of course, the race winner in season 10 around this circuit. This time just trying to move his way up the order as best as he can and end this season on a high. Bit of a swap as well for Sven Poor, who dropped some positions. I'm seeing some white flags queued out as well as George Boothby now trying to go around the outside of Sasha Vasta. That's brave. And there's a yellow flag for the number 24 car. That is Eric Trankelbach in the Audi. What happened to him over the top of the mountain? We'll try to catch it as they made their way over the crest, making his way past those barriers, very, very close, constantly, lap after lap. Managed to stay clear of the wall on the exit there. Is it going to be through McPhillimes? And the back end just completely lets go on him. And that is a heavy impact into the wall on the right-hand side of the circuit. And in the end, nothing that he could do and just decides to head straight back to the pits. And I think that's a fairly understandable response, all things considered. Aiden Walsingham just made a move over Tony Mahoney. Got the job done as he tries to reclaim some positions. But of course, he's running a bit damaged at the moment. It's all kicking off between Luke Addison and Michael Frey further up the order as well as inside the top 20. Addison gets himself up into P18 now. It's Sven Poor having the drag race alongside Michael Frey in that number 19 Porsche. And BMW trying to get the job done around the outside. We've seen a choice move already, and there's contact. And here is contact with the wall further. And George Boothby, who's up into 22nd, make that 21st position, almost making it 3 wide in towards the cutting, trying to go around the outside of the pair of them. A brave move from the man that says P2 in the standings. He's still sitting there. He's still alongside the BMW, but eventually he does slot back into position. Yellow flags further down the order. That, oh my goodness, has been complete shenanigans at the cutting, and everything has come to a stop. But my goodness, there is action kicking off up and down the field at the moment. I'm trying to keep up with each and every bit of it. Marko Budowski side by side with Walsingham now as he tries to recover positions. Well, goes around the outside. That's a brave way to do it on the top part of the mountain, then in towards McPhillimes. And the Mercedes for Team Monkey Racing is going to have to drop down the order as a result. Your race leader is still Grantis Correcas ahead of Jardier. And then Marco Bischoff rounding out the top 3 right now and doing what he needs to do in order to cement that P3 spot going forward. Seeing some battles as well for Boris Schulk and Albin Manson. Boris trying to see if he can get his way up into P11. Albin Manson trying to hold that inside line in towards Murray's corner. Around the outside, Boris Schulk goes, but he's not going to do it there. Oh my goodness, there was almost quite some severe contact. And word of advice, you do not want to be taking out the man that runs the platform. I can guarantee you that. But Mattia Mex almost going into the back of the McLaren, but thankfully just about managed to pull up the Lamborghini in time. We'll also check on the stewards' inquiries, see how everything has been faring there. We've had some warnings being dished out, but we have also had some penalties for the opening 10 minutes of this race, as Marco Wong going side by side with Nico Penn. Now the 2 BMWs, but the Finnish driver with a big slide through turn 2 is going to hold on to that position by the looks of it. 15-second time penalty given to a number 27 car, as Boris Schulk, Albin Manson goes very deep in towards the cutting, drops 2 positions in the process. So not ideal for the Swedish driver. As number 27, who was that in the serve? That's Tony Mahoney that's ended up getting a 15-second time penalty. He's right on the tail end of his group here. There's Aiden Walsingham right at the back of Andreas Rogel in the Lamborghini that sits just in front of him. Walsingham pushing on at this point in time, but of course has got some damage on board that car, but still a lot of pace on board that McLaren as he tries to push further up the field and reclaim some positions. The number 8 car's got a 5-second time penalty, and the number 8 car is Eric Del Fanta for forcing a car off track. The number 6 has a 15-second time penalty for an unsafe rejoin, and that is the man we are looking at right now, Aiden Walsingham. So unfortunate stuff for him, and I think there may be some more penalties on the way for some other cars. Meanwhile, Eric Del Fanta slicing his way past Marco Wong. Maybe damage on board the McLaren there, but he does manage to make his way through and into P15 the McLaren driver goes, as he tries to surge his way back towards top 10. Of course, an hour and 5 minutes left on the clock, and he is reclaiming position. Still opportunities to see if he can get back into a top 10. I do apologise, everybody. I've adjusted to think about every single setting that I can feasibly do and get away with, and I think unfortunately my internet has decided upon the finale to rather give up the ghost on this one, and I can only apologise. Hopefully, if nothing else, if you need to switch off the pictures, I'll try my best to give you all of the action in radio form and let you know exactly how everything sits in this race and all the goodness that we have to look forward to in Season 12. Meanwhile, those cheering on George Boothby for his first challenge in that number 3 McLaren, making his way up into P19 now, as Valentine Barrier, I think, just dropped a couple of positions. I think he himself has just made a bit of a mistake into the cutting. See, heading through turn 2, all was well. And then as they went up into turns 3 and 4, is he going to head wide on the entry? Does break a little bit deep. Oh, it was the wall. He tagged the wall on the weird portion of the circuit, actually, to catch on. He kind of took it right at the very end of the apex, just was a bit too committed to the camber, and unfortunately tags the wall, and then actually clobbers the other wall on the exit as well to really compound things, get some additional damage on that car, and drops himself behind both Onufriev and Oliver Hagstrom, where Oliver Hagstrom right now really putting on a fight to try to see if he can make his way up into P6 and slicing the way over to the left-hand side of the circuit. Under brakes, can he get the job done? He's had to really park it on the exit of the corner there. And Vasily Onufriev, a lot of experience from him inside his McLaren, and he just goes straight back on through. And Valentine Barrier now looking for an opportunity to get back past the Swede, but I don't think in towards Murray's that opportunity is going to come about on this occasion. So we'll see how they continue to fare. Other battles taking place further down the order. Michael Frey and Sven Poor. Sasha Vastner involved in that one as well, as that was a massive bit of contact, and also riding the curb on the exit of the final turn there. The BMW does drop a position. What about Hoffman versus Andreas Rogel? And Andreas Rogel almost ended up with a BMW in his gearbox. Christopher Hoffman almost ends up in the wall, and the Bathurst race circuit continues to provide chaos and action. Adam Scott in number 34 car. That was the Audi that I think I saw dropping down the order a bit earlier on. He makes his way past a car. George Boothby has just got himself past Luke Addison, as Albin Manson and Mattia Mex swap positions on the run up in towards turn 2 as well. So Albin Manson up into P12 now, of course. Having dropped away a little bit from Boris Schulk after their previous squabble. Checking in on our race leaders, we have Grantis Karekas leading away with Jardier sitting in P2, still within 3 seconds of his sister teammate, but quite the way to go if he wants to try to get a win to his tally. But Grant just looking in a very strong position at the moment to at least finish the season on a high. Marco Bischoff doing what he needs to do after making his way through the chaos and carnage, and finds himself in what is a much more comfortable spot for his championship position in P3 right now. Matty DeCampo, Carpenter rounding out the top 5. The main battle going on as Albin Manson has dropped a lot of positions. What has gone on there? He's dropping positions so quickly, but I can't even get to his car in time because it just keeps on going down the order. Something has kicked off there. George Boothby's made up a position. Matty and Mex, side by side, Nico Pendant on the run in towards 21 and 22. Del Fanta trying to see if he can do anything about this. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to. Almost squeezed out on the exit there. Valentine Barrier has dropped a position up ahead as well, battling alongside Oliver Hagstrom in towards Murray's corner. They go as we almost round off the first 30 minutes of this race. An hour left to go in this one, as that position is sorted, but these ones certainly aren't, because we've got Oliver Hagstrom still applying the pressure to Onufriev. Valentine Barrier, though, struggling in a straight line. Dennis Beachshalk is going to get him, and Cody Sherratt in the Genesis Esports Ferrari trying to see if he can make his way through as well, but in the end the McLarens just have a little bit too much straight line speed capability over the 296, and in the end we'll have to sit back and wait for another opportunity. Vincent Proel as Marco Wong almost goes into the wall at turn 2. And I think there may even be a little bit of damage on the front end of that BMW. See if we can catch what has gone on there. Also, George Boothby now all the way up to P15. So we were wondering whether or not he was fast enough and talented enough in order to make that last of first challenge work. And the answer right now, looking like he's certainly got the opportunity. And up in towards turn 2, contact, and does tag the wall almost on the exit there. And yeah, Matecho, I can only apologise. I am sorry. I will continue the broadcast to the end and try to at least give you audio coverage, if nothing else, because this championship and these talented drivers very much do deserve it. And I can only apologise about the lagginess of the stream. I have no idea why the internet has caved in the way that it does. I have, unfortunately, no other options left in terms of trying to improve the quality of the stream, but we'll soldier on. Hopefully, with any luck, it may come back to us. But right now, Oliver Hagstrom applying the pressure to Onufriev down in towards the final corner, trying to see if he can do anything about the number 15 car. As these two have continued to scrap, in actual fact, got very close where, because Dennis Wittstock, I think a mistake in towards the final turn, has allowed Cody Schratt in that Ferrari to make his way through. We'll try to catch what's happened there. And you can see, in actual fact, no, things kicked off significantly earlier than that, because Wittstock, in actual fact, has made his way past Valentin Barrier. In towards Murray's corner he goes, and just runs way too deep on the grass, and both Valentin and Cody say thank you very much and make their way past and gain a couple of positions in the process. So not ideal for Wittstock, but he will soldier on nonetheless and see what he can do to the end stage of the race, because it does look like he has some pace at the moment, and he is certainly trying to utilise it as best as he can. Meanwhile, Oliver Hagstrom still applying a lot of pressure onto the back of the McLaren driver ahead of him, Onufriev, returning to the series and doing a fine job. This is not an easy place to go toe-to-toe with any car, and he's managed to put himself in a very strong position at this point in time, especially considering the unfortunate lack of quality and lack of internet capability that I have at my end tonight. I want to say a big thank you to all of those that are still hanging around in the stream and those that are continuing to follow here on Twitch. This should hopefully be a one-off, and then we can look forward to more goodness and streams heading into Season 12. But Oliver Hagstrom now looking down the inside of Vasily Onufriev. It's the best opportunity he's had in a while. Very deep on the brakes, but he's got it a lot better stops than he did last time. I'm not sure that Onufriev is going to be able to respond like he did before. And in actual fact, he does get the move done. There's been some swapping of positions as well with Del Fanta, Martin Mex, and that is George Boothby coming through this as well. He's giving a little bit of a push to pass on the Lamborghini ahead of him. Martin Mex may have even gone a little bit deep in towards Murray's corner. George Boothby all the way around the outside. A little bit too ambitious on that occasion. In actual fact, he's going to have to defend from Vincent Froel because he's up 25 positions. But, of course, Bathurst race circuit, if you make one mistake, it can very much all go wrong and downhill from there. No pun intended. George Boothby, though, the fact that he has gained 25 positions in just over 30 minutes just goes to show how good he is, and I think he is certainly on for a top 10 at least if he keeps up this momentum to the end of the race. Del Fanta and Matthew Meck still scrapping just ahead of him, but no opportunities for the McLaren driver to make his way past just yet. We will actually have a bit of a look and see in terms of position delta. Of course, George Boothby, by far the driver that has made the most amount of progress in the opening phase of this race. 25 positions added to his tally. 9 for Nico Pennon, so good job from the Finnish driver. And we've had some other shuffling up and down the order. We've got 6 positions for Boris Schultz, 6 for Cody Sharrett as well, and 5 for Sebastian Krohn a bit further down, 7 for Luke Addison. The Genesis Esports moving up through the field pretty nicely this evening. But yeah, the mountain, a formidable task But right now, the master of it, and staying calm and composed under pressure, granted Korekis after having got the move done on his sister teammate Jardier there, who sits 2.3 seconds behind. Last time was a little bit faster than Korekis. This time around, a little bit faster again, so he's still very much on pace with the number 2 car that leads this race, but has got a bit of work to do if he wants to try and find an opportunity. Will he look to go for quite an aggressive undercut strategy over his teammate? We'll have to wait and see. Maybe that is going to be the only way for him to go about that. I think we've got some battling further on down. Michael Frey versus Marco Wong. Frey almost found an opportunity into the chicane. What about this, though? Cody Scherer has made his way past Dennis Wietschorker. And now finds himself up into P9. So those supporting Genesis Esports will be loving that for the number 31 car. Great job from him. Number 39 is brought the yellow flag. That's Lucas Egger again up at the top of the hill. Has got going again by the looks of it. Meanwhile, the battle is not over just yet for that P9 spot, because that McLaren is very quick in a straight line. And Wietschorker applying all sorts of pressure over the back of Cody Sherritt's car, but now over the top of the mountain. That should be where this Ferrari starts to shine, as there'll be a lot of confidence on board the prototype-like nature of this car. Pit window open then, so Jardier, will he go for that aggressive undercut? And you'd have to imagine the undercut will be relatively powerful around here. Probably not the most powerful that we've seen, but we've got decent temperatures. We have some pretty relentless series of corners, and definitely some places where they will be wanting to have a fresh set of boots on board their car and use that grip advantage. You can see immediately Cody Sherritt's open up 1.5 seconds to Dennis Wietschorker, because that's the difference. That's what I mean about the straight line speed advantage that McLarens have, even when you don't have the raw pace. That if you can just keep yourself ahead on track position, you can hold someone back like Cody, because right now Cody has absolutely been unleashed and is already onto the gearbox of Valentine Barry, who we know is running a little bit wounded at the moment. And we've got potentially another move for George Boothby as well versus Mathieu Mex down in towards the chase. Surely gets that one done easily in the end. Cody Sherritt wasn't able to get past Valentine Barrier by the time they got to the end of the Conrod straight, but George Boothby makes his way up into P14 and makes it 26 positions gain. And Valentine is the first one to blink and come in to the pits then. So the Frenchman deciding that he wants some fresh tyres, maybe will repair the damage as well. We'll have to wait and see. Last time around though, notably, Jardier 0.3 of a second faster than Korekis, so he's been consistently just a smidge quicker than Korekis in the lead of this race over the last few laps, and that could start to play into his hands in the closing stage of this race, but it could all start to flip the other way when the tyres start to get reset. Meanwhile, Del Fanta, Nico Pendon going side by side. George Boothby just a witness to all this at the moment, swapping positions further down the order, as well as Vassner and Tony Mahoney come into the pits. And good to hear that we have some vague level of stream stability. I hope it stays like that, and hopefully it will at least be vaguely alive and well to the end. I'll be honest, I don't have the most promising statistics of what I have at my end, as 63.7% of the frames sent to Twitch have not made them there, made it there. So I think that goes to show, unfortunately, how much my side of things is struggling. So I do apologise, everybody, but hopefully we'll be able to make it to the end. We've got 52 minutes left to go to close out Season 11. Fingers crossed we can end on as much of a high on the stream side of things as we can, with the incredible action that our driver has been treating us to so far today. Korekis still leads ahead of Jardier. Marco Bischoff sits in P3, DeCampo P4, Karpinen P5, Hagstrom, Anufriev, Sherritt, Wietschorker and Schulk round up your top 10. And then you've got this ongoing scrap with George Boothby, who has started in 40th position, now is just waiting for an opportunity for Del Fanta and Pennant to go side by side, and this is looking very good for Del Fanta. Almost contact through the chase there. Got to be careful to give each other just enough room, and it's good racing respect between the pair. And George Boothby trying to get the power down. He wants to open up the exit, but he's compromised with that BMW on the left hand side. Now he's got the run up in towards Murray's corner, but he's got to still be careful, and almost into the back of the BMW. But George Boothby left hung out to dry on the outside, and Mathieu Mex is fighting his way back and says, thank you very much, I'll go into P13 if you don't mind. And that's rather unfortunate. Spoke too soon. I think I may have commentator cursed myself. I'm not actually sure that anyone in the history of commentary has done that, but I've actually managed to achieve that. Well, we'll see how the stream goes. But like I say, if nothing else, I'll try to keep the action alive with the noise box. Heading up towards turn 2, then George Boothby trying to go around the outside of Matthew Mex now for the first time. I think dropping back a position in this race, and that is big commitment, and that is a lot of talent in that car. Because to make a move around the outside there when you're not even lead car in towards that corner is incredibly tricky. Side by side, Vincent Proel and Mattia Mex as they head up in towards the top part of the mountain, and the Lamborghini drops 2 positions in almost as many corners. Michael Frey going side by side, almost squeezing Jonathan Clifford into the wall as they go over the crest then as they fly past that barrier. Once again, look at these camera angles. My goodness, how good of a job must it be to sit there in real life with one of those cameras? Terrifying, but a great job nonetheless, as Michael Frey does hold on to that position and maintains P19, which is where he started this race. So P19 is his race position, P19 will qualifying, and number 19 is his car number as well. I'm not sure quite where he sits in the championship, but all the numbers right now are aligning for the Swiss driver. Gaps have opened up a little bit in our top 10 group. First close scrap is Matthew Mex versus Vincent Proel, who I think might be a little bit vulnerable in this 296 as they head down the Conrad straight once more, down into the chase. But the Lamborghini just a bit too far away. My goodness, that was a good sounding noise going out the back of the 296. It's a pretty tame sounding car for the most part, but I'll tell you what, when the popping and banging starts going off, that is pretty good, and especially whilst our visual side of thing for the stream this evening may be a bit compromised, having some good audio goodness from these cars is certainly not too shabby of a way to make up for it. Gap again has been roughly maintained between our race leaders of Carreras and Jardier. Bischoff, despite the damage on board his car, is managing to keep in touching distance of those lead times. Meanwhile, it's George Boothby trying to see if he can get past Nico Pennanen, but unable to outdrag the BMW up the hill. So the BMW, which we have seen be a pretty good car in a straight line on a couple of occasions, looking good once again, but George Boothby trying to go around the outside in towards the cutting, and he is going to be shown the rear diffuser of that BMW. No opportunities being given to the man that sits P2 in the standings. It's been a massive run through the field so far. Of course, a little bit out of position with certain pit stops that have taken place here, but he is certainly very much around the 26, 27 positions gained in this race. But right now, losing a little bit of time to Nico Pennanen. As a squarely run over Skyline down into the S's and the Dipper. And you'd have to think, with how good this McLaren has been in a straight line and how good George Boothby has been at making progress, if he gets a good run through Forest Elbow, stays just about clear. Although that was a mistake from Nico Pennanen and hits the wall on the exit of Forest Elbow, and as a result is likely going to drop the position. I know I am sorry, Revo. I've done everything I can at my end and I'm doing my best, but unfortunately it does look like the internet has just decided that on the season finale of season 11 that it does not want to play ball. Vasily and Nufri briefly brought out the yellow flag, but that is all okay, I do believe, because he's come into the pit, so I think that is just the overlay being a little bit on the sensitive side. But George Boothby does get the move done, and with those other drivers that have pitted around him, makes his way up into P11. Will be P10 once he passes Nufriev in the pit lane. So right now sitting at a net 30 positions gained. Will be more like, I think, about 27 by the time the pit stops phase is closed out. It'd be interesting to see how he plays it, because clearly overtaking opportunities are pretty good around here. If you've got that sort of pace advantage and you've got a car that's working well around here, that you can make up those overtakes. So I imagine George Boothby, given the sort of pace that he has and is likely to maintain in that second phase of the race, the good chance that he'll go for quite a strong overcut here and then just try to be in a really strong phase at the end of the race in terms of his tyres. So we'll have to see how that plays out for the man that sits P2 in the championship. Jan Drexler, a little bit of a compromise moment for him. He was battling pretty closely with Luke Addison. We'll try to see what happened there. Maybe not quite as close as I thought he was, unless he's gained in the slipstream and then just outbraked himself. I imagine that's the way that this is probably going to be heading as more drivers come into the pits. Dieter Bletten into the pits now, number 37 car, and Jan Drexler heading in towards turn 21. No, in fairness, the Delta was just actually a little bit on the sensitive side in all of that, so makes his way through there relatively cleanly. Loses a tiny bit of time, but nothing too dramatic in the grand scheme of things. Michael Frey still applying the pressure on to Marco Wong, and crucially, both of your lead McLarens have come into the pits. Grantis Korekis and Jardier in the number 2 and number 4 car that make up those top 2 spots have come into the pits at the same time, so there won't be any difference in strategy between those two. It'll just be an out-and-out duel to the end. Oliver Hagstrom, the next of the McLarens, comes into the pits as well. Marco Bischoff goes into lead of this race. Michael Frey side by side with Marco Wong in towards the chase and around the outside, and trying to head through a very tricky, fantastic racing respect shown between the pair of them. Marco Wong is going to dive into the pits, doesn't want to lose any more time. And speaking of losing time, apparently the stream is about 20 minutes behind at this point. And oh my goodness, I think it is. I've just seen the stream preview at my end. I can't believe that. I didn't even realise that that was a thing. I will try to see if... does that mean that the audio is out of sync with the video? I have no idea. I'm so sorry, everybody. I've never run into issues like this, but I'm a little bit inexperienced when it comes to the Twitch side of life. So I honestly have no clue, and I don't quite know what to do about that. Meanwhile, Andreas Rogel is sitting right behind Jardier, who's come out of the pits pretty much even with the gap that he had before with Grantis Korekis, 2.5 seconds separating the drivers that were your previous leaders. They're out in P11 and P12 as Marco Bischoff has taken over the race lead overall as they continue to fly up through over the crest of the circuit, and that is Andreas Rogel having a tag of the wall up over McPhillamy's. Very difficult part of the race circuit to put together there. And heading further down the field, we've got more drivers coming into the pits as well. I think Marco Wong has just emerged out of the pit lane, very close to Sven Poor. And looks like he's still got damage on the front of that BMW, so not ideal for the number 16 car by any stretch of the imagination. And I am actually going to... I'm going to have to try to speak to some people in the background here to understand where the stream is, because I think at this rate it's more important that we actually catch the race end, because I have a horrible feeling if I stop the stream at this point in time, they may just shut everything down, and I would much rather everybody at least had the final portion of the stream, because we do have exciting news in terms of Season 12, and if nothing else, the results from this race and getting that news all to you wonderful people is the most important thing. So I will be trying to conduct a little bit of investigating shenanigans in the background and continue to try to improve the situation as much as I can. But like I say, I do sincerely apologise. This is very much not gone very well at all from the commentary booth side of things. Meanwhile, Sasha Vastner applying the pressure on Jan Drexler now, trying to go around the outside on the exit of turn 22. Drexler has got the move covered, has he? Vastner applying pressure in towards Murray's corner. But unfortunately for the Mercedes driver, isn't quite able to make anything stick as more and more drivers start to come into the pits. George Boothby staying out for the time being, as Eric Del Fanta in a pretty close fight himself. Someone just went very wide, I think, out of the first turn. Not sure who that was. Eric Del Fanta unable to get past Vincent Proel. What about, Nico Penner. Vincent Proel going very deep on the run through turn 2. And we've got Luke Anderson and Mattia Mexer make their way past as a result. And the Ferrari 296 has dropped a couple of positions in the process as Jardier has made a mistake. Jardier's made a mistake, I do believe, at Forest Elbow. He manages to get the car whipped around. Very well done from him in order to not make contact with the wall there. But something has gone wrong for the man that was the only one really applying pressure to Grandes Carreras. Has he clipped the inside wall? Because he was basically on circuit by himself, I don't think. Oh, he's just got it lost. He's lost it completely under braking. And oh my goodness, that is heavy, heavy contact with the barrier. So although he kept out the wall on the recovery spin, unfortunately that is going to do nothing compared to the damage that he has had applied to his car. So now this is just going to be a case, I think, of him trying to survive to the end, much like this stream, I do believe, as... that has not worked well for him at all. Eric Del Fanta now battling side by side with Nico Pennant in the BMW. Just dropped a position to the Italian driver. As now we also have the likes of Sasha Vasta still applying pressure to Jan Drexler. If I understand correctly, everything is running very behind on the stream, and I think the audio is quite possibly in sync. Which is likely why some of the timing between what I've said and chat hasn't quite fitted. So at this point in time, I am just going to try and get a little bit of a better understanding of the situation as it sits right now, and then we'll try to make sure that we're released on target for a synced up finish at the end. So we'll round out this little battle between Anderson, Mex and Vincent Proel, and then I will do some background digging trying to understand the situation that we're facing at this end in the commentary box. Lamborghini versus Ferrari through turn 2 there, and in the end Matthew Mex looked like he was going to get the position done, but is not all done just yet, because the 296 of that is Luke Anderson fighting away, managing to hold on to the back of a Lamborghini, not take a position. Meanwhile, Marco Bischoff has just taken the position over Jardier, who seems to be continuing to struggle. A lot of damage on board that car, and it won't be a race victory. At best, it will be a podium for Jardier, and you can see just the speed advantage that Marco Bischoff had. He's now 15 seconds behind Grandes Carreras, your race leader, and Jardier very quickly looking to be vulnerable to the rest of the field, charging on through. So a disappointing way for him to wrap up his race by the looks of it. I shall leave the cameras on this scrap with Oliver Hagstrom versus Dennis Wietschorker, and I shall do some digging in the background in the meantime. And just like that, with the powers of teleportation, we're at 17 minutes of the race left to go. Now, it's been a very weird experience over here for the last 25 minutes, because I've effectively done nothing whilst trying to allow you guys watching the stream to kind of catch up on what action has taken place and all the dramatic portions, whilst my internet sort of vaguely recovers into a state where we might vaguely be able to make it to the end of the stream. Hopefully it'll survive to the end, I'm not quite sure, but we should hopefully at least be vaguely in sync for the final 16 minutes of this race. If not, we'll restart it again and we'll try to see what we can do. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for those that have stuck around. The fact that there are still 125 of you in here at the moment is just absolutely mind-blowing, and I'm so grateful for your support and sticking around after what has been, let's face it, not really the finale that any one of us would have wanted. I've accidentally tabbed out of my screen entirely, but the good thing is Aidan Walsingham's now trying to make a move on the Lamborghini further down the order. That's Jonathan Clifford, as we resume the action, and hopefully we'll be in store for a good closing stage of the race. So, all that being said, and all things kicking off, Vincent Proel is currently trying to apply the pressure to Luke Anderson. Also, to give you a little bit of an update onto some other things that you wouldn't have seen at your end, but I've been bearing witness to. This man, George Boothby, he's up into P5 now. There's been a couple of bits of shenanigans that have taken place, but generally speaking, he's done that on pace and pure pace alone, and has worked his way up into the top 5. And the fact that he is 10 seconds away from Timu Karppinen after starting in P40 is just absolutely incredible. So fantastic work from George Boothby. His sister teammate Jardier, who you hopefully, if I timed it right, did see have that rather unfortunate moment down at Forest Elbow, has gone into the pits, repaired the damage, and is now charging on to try to work his way back up the order and recover positions as much as he can. Someone else that had a similar moment down at Murray's corner with a bit of unfortunate contact was Sasha Vassner, who has also since been into the pits and is pushing on, but probably doesn't have such great prospects in terms of moving forward for the closing stages of this race. So we'll have to see how Vastner gets on. And other than that, with some various scraps up and down the field, I think that more or less brings us up to date with the things that you didn't see that I've seen, that I've hopefully now informed you vaguely about, so that we're all roughly clued up on what on earth has gone on in this crazy race. And you're very kind, Katagrama. That's very sweet of you to say, and I do very much appreciate all of you that have suffered through the last, I don't even know how long now. I suppose an hour and 15 minutes is difficult to say because time slowed down, then sped up again. It's been more of an episode of Doctor Who than it has really been from a weekly LFM stream. But you know, I think that in some ways, perhaps that just goes to summarise the chaos and drama that the Case King Pro Series always brings with it. It's not often that we have it inside the commentary box as much as on the circuit, but it does happen from time to time, and it wouldn't be an LFM stream if there wasn't some sort of form of shenanigans in every way possible to keep me on my toes. So hopefully we'll be in a settled position to the end of this one, and we can close out with a good result over on the stream. We've got Koreka still leading by 18.5 seconds over Marco Bischoff. So 1-2 for those drivers who were battling in terms of the championship. Meanwhile, Vincent Proel trying to apply the pressure onto Luke Addison still, but unable to progress past. Of course, identical cars between those two Ferrari 296s. In actual fact, Michael Frey in the Porsche 992 surging up behind the Ferrari. And Michael Frey, all things considered, with the Porsche's kind of rather difficult to extract platform, or difficult to extract pace from that platform at the moment, he's done pretty well to get himself up into P16, 3 positions up from where he started. Of course, it does have the likes of Valentin Barrio, Aidan Walsingham, Jardier, they're all pushing on as they've gone down the order, trying to move their way back up again. But we shall see how we get on to the end of this race. And like I say, at the end of this race, for those of you that have stuck around to the end, that you'll be treated to extra little bits of insight over all the goodness and excitement that we have coming for Season 12. So whilst today may not have been the most illustrious of streams, I must admit, and I can only apologise once again on that front, that there are still at least some goody things to be finding out about at the end of this one. Jardier making his way past Jonathan Clifford in the Lamborghini, dropping back the American driver to 21st position as Jardier pushes on, lapping around 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds a lap faster than all of those around, and will be looking to close in on the likes of Jan Drexler, even maybe his teammate, sister teammate Aidan Walsingham, and Valentin Barry a little bit further up the road. 11.5 minutes to go on the clock, so still opportunities for Jardier to potentially move his way forward. You can see he's already less than 3/4 of a second behind the BMW of Jan Drexler, so opportunities on the horizon for that man Mattia Mex as well. Another driver on the move, trying to see if he can get past Nico Pennanen up in P12, who's gained 9 positions in this race. Another one of the big moves, of course, George Buppy rather dwarfing that figure, gaining 35 positions at this stage of the race. And did indeed go for that kind of slightly later pit stop. It's worth noting that he's lapping a casual 0.6 of a second faster than anybody else on the circuit. He's almost doing 59s at this point of the race. Nico Penn a little bit wide on the exit of McPhillamys Park, but has managed to keep it going. White flag for Boris Schulk. I'm not sure if he's had a bit of a moment. There was a bit of an issue for him in the middle sector on part of the action that you didn't quite see, although nothing too dramatic for the German driver. And of course, the LFM, one of the co-founders of this incredible group. Meanwhile, Mattia, Michael and Jardier all being the drivers right now in a hot pursuit trying to make up moves, and I think it's going to be Jardier to be the first one to make a move out of these three, trying to gain positions in the final 10 minutes of this race as he looks to try to outdrag this BMW of Jan Drex, and he will get the move done before they get into the chase. I can see people starting to make their way back in. Tell your friends, tell all of those that unfortunately did understandably disband from the slideshow stream that we had for the vast majority of that race, but bring everyone back in so we can hopefully finish the season not just on a high, but like I say, with all of the good exciting news for things to come ahead going into season 12. Things out the front of the field are pretty locked out with Granjas Carreras a whopping 18 seconds ahead of Marco Bischoff, but won't speak too soon because we've seen what's happened in the past to the likes of Florian Duacop when he had a comfortable gap like that. So I shall say nothing further. I've cursed, I think, enough things on the stream this evening, so I think we'll just veer away from that. We'll check in with those guys later on. Meanwhile, Mattia X applying the pressure still to Nico Pennon. Let's go on board with Mattia in the Lamborghini. You get the roar of the V10 in the closing stages of this race, and also that we can witness this fantastic onboard series of shots where you're trying to follow a car through this very, very fast, high commitment section of the mountain. Look, barrier to barrier every time you go from one apex to the next. The BMW Pennon again wide on the exit of turn 10, just about managing to get himself sorted ahead of the S's and the Dipper, but at BMW looking a little bit ragged at this stage of the race. Number 22 of Mattia trying to push on and see what he can do. It's a good run at Forest Elbow. Should have the advantage under acceleration, but that BMW, it's got Herculean pace down in terms of straight line speed performance. It's got the toe in this number 22 car, gaining all the time. That BMW just manages to keep that gap for the time being, and now looking on the inside, but he's just too far away, almost into the gearbox of the BMW ahead, but manages to just about keep it together through the chicane. But it does look like it is more of a matter of when it's going to change rather than if, because this Lamborghini continuing to apply the pressure. 8 minutes left to go, about 4 laps or so for these drivers. Same for the likes of those at the pointy end of the grid. Just quickly checking in with Grant, you can see it's about half a lap clear of those drivers that we were looking at a moment ago. Another battle that is heating up is the likes of Jonathan Clifford versus Jan Drexler. Drexler very struggling at this stage of the race, 0.8 of a second slower than the Lamborghini behind, although Michael Frey is the one on the move right now, trying to go around the outside of Vincent Proel. Surely that's not going to work, and it's not indeed, although he's got a pretty good run out of that turn, trying to see if he can use the torque curve of that flat 6 powered Porsche around the outside, may get the inside in towards the cutting, but he can't quite get there, though it's a wide moment from the Ferrari in front, and we'll go on board the front splitter of his Porsche as that wonderful 6-cylinder engine roars in the rear boot of this Porsche, as opposed to that front boot that those cars have. It's been a long evening, but Michael Frey pushing on as they head through turn 10. Both of these drivers looking a bit more committed through that part of the lap. In actual fact, these two closing in on what's becoming a three-way fight pretty shortly between Pennon, Mex and Addison for P12, and if those drivers do start a scrap, these guys are only a couple of seconds behind, so we could see a 5-way fight between some of these drivers trying to fight for those points just inside the top 15 positions, and it may not be where you're going to get the best of prizes, but I tell you what, these guys, they have had a long evening, just as much as we have in the commentary booth, and for yourselves watching the stream, as they have been fighting the challenge of the mountain and trying to wield their cars around this incredible circuit. No changes available for Michael Frey just yet. Same when it comes to Mattia. Half a second now adrift of the BMW sits in front of him. We've also got some other scraps further down the field. We've got Tony Mahoney versus Alexander Krauk. 296 versus the BMW M4. And then we've also got scraps between Marco Budowski and the number 26 Mercedes. I believe that's actually the livery of the car that won here in real life, as we have Amar Darovic in the number 35 Project 88 Ferrari, making his way past Lucas Egger, who's had a bit of a difficult time, it must be said, in that 39 car, and it's not going to get much easier because he's running a bit wounded at the moment, and he has Dennis Wietschorker that is applying the pressure in the McLaren behind. He's had a pretty good afternoon, it must be said, sitting in P10 at the moment. So he's got 6 seconds to the next car behind, and Lucas Egger is going to pull over to the left-hand side so he can get out of the way of Dennis. I imagine that's not the easiest, as that is the Ferrari of... who is that? Is that Jan Laxon? It is Jan Laxon. So that is a car that is also a lap ahead of the Visceral Esports driver, and will be looking to make their way past on the way up towards turn 2. And thankfully, whilst we resumed the final stages of this race, as more of you start to pour back in to the stream, welcome back, and thank you for rejoining. And again, apologies for the issues that we have somewhat faced today. As, oh no, I see my internet doing fluctuating things again. Come on, 4.5 minutes left to go. You can make it. As I'm sure that's about the sort of thing that Lucas is maybe saying on board his BMW, because it's running a little bit wounded at the moment, that car. So, similarities both in the comms box and in the cockpit of some of these cars. I do think Jonathan Clifford applying the pressure to Jan Drexler, also checking in though, because Valentin Barrier out of nowhere charging at a rate of knots past Michael Frey, and also onto the back of Vincent Proel. In just a moment, Jonathan Clifford trying to make the move on Jan Drexler in the closing stages of this race. Can't get it done. The BMW is just still a little bit too quick in a straight line, but we will hop back to this squabble because Valentin Barrier 1.3 seconds faster than Vincent Proel on the last lap, and you would have to imagine that on this next run up towards turn 2, that Valentin in that Yassin McLaren is likely going to be putting pressure on to this Ferrari. Eric Del Fanta brought the white flag for a brief moment there. I think he has somewhat survived whatever moment that he did have, still maintaining P8. Meanwhile, Valentin doesn't decide to send up the inside. I thought he might look to try to get the nose in towards the inside there, because of course if you can get the nose there, especially if you've got this kind of performance advantage, even from a long way back, you can likely still do pretty well. White flag out for George Boothby a moment ago. We'll see what happens if he's only lost 0.3 of a second, so I don't think anything too bad in the grand scheme of things. Also on the last lap, he did 59.925. It must have been, much like his fastest lap time, it must have been a slight cut on that lap, because he hasn't taken fastest lap of the race. That still sits with Grantis Correcus on a slightly slower time of a 0.975. So... close but no cigar for George Boothby. He's 5 seconds behind Timo Karppinen, and he is gaining a second a lap, but only he's going to have, I think, about 2 more laps to go in this race. So running out of opportunities to try to make it 36 positions gained in this one, but still a titanic effort from George Boothby. In, of course, a round where he's having sort of a little bit of fun, but you do have to wonder, what could he have done if he had actually tried to qualify and start at the pointy end of the field? Who knows? It could have gone twice as badly. You never know with the mountain, because it throws up all sorts of issues. Valentin now going around the outside, but turns into the inside at the end of the Conrad Straight, and he does make his way past the Ferrari, but now it's going to be Michael Frey that surely starts to come into this fight, trying to make an opportunity happen out of that squabble between the McLaren and the Ferrari in towards Murray's corner. Very late on the brakes, almost into the rear diffuser, a bit of contact, and sent into the grass, and out of nowhere, Aidan Walsingham, another one of those sister Veloce Yassi McLaren, comes soaring up the inside. There he is, down the inside in towards Hell's corner, and I'm sure he's about to give hell to Vincent Proel in that Ferrari, because he has also been moving his way through the field as well. So a little bit of scrappy fighting at the closing stages of this race as it all starts to kick off. And, I say start to kick off, we've had this sort of carnage for the vast majority of the race. There was a little bit of a lull, which I sort of tactically tried to time in terms of the bits and pieces of action that you didn't see. But fundamentally, at least in 1 or 2 places up and down the grid, there has been constant fighting going on, and here comes the next one, Marco Badowski in the number 26 Mercedes, going side by side with Chris Smith in that number 40 BMW around the outside. Very brave to do that, but he's got the confidence under braking. He gets the move done. I think Sasha Vassner might be another Mercedes making his way past the BMW in a short moment as well. And Walsingham absolutely glued to the back of Vincent Proel, but no opportunity as of right now, and Grant Correcus has started the final lap of the race. We will check back though with Walsingham, because I think it is rather inevitable, as there's Jardier coming back into the picture as well. So Valentin Aiden and Johnny all having rather difficult days in the office of those McLarens, and they've right now found themselves all very much nip and tuck on the circuit. Johnny did try to stay out with his wounded car for a brief period, but I think he was lapping something about 8 or 9 seconds. That's slower than everyone else, so it just was not worth it. He's now quite a chunk of time to drive that car around the outside almost. See what, Vincent must have very low downforce. Either he has very low downforce or Walsingham has very high downforce on board each of those cars, because I would have expected that McLaren to breeze its way past, but just could not find opportunity on that occasion. But still has one more lap to go, and you would have to say, oh dear, that's not what Carreras wants to be seeing in front of him. And one of the BMWs, I think that might have been Lucas Egger, it was, went flying into the wall, and I'm sure that gave Grantis Carreras a very big scare. He's driven a very calm and clean race, and it almost came to a rather abrupt end with a face full of BMW, but thankfully manages to negotiate that one very well, and just trundle his way past, lose a little bit of time. It doesn't have to take any risk when you have a 16.5 second advantage as these scraps continue to take place. Sasha Vassner as well trying to make a move now on to Chris Smith. Where is Carreras? He's coming down into the chase. We'll try to see if we can catch as many of these fights as we can. Sasha Vassner is looking to try to make a move. He'll send one up the inside in towards the chicane. I think he will get that one done. By the looks of it, he will. But I've got to look to this man, because Grantis Carreras takes the final race win here in Season 11. A calm and composed and brilliantly executed victory from the number 2 car. Exceptional stuff. Marco Bischoff takes P2 to finish P3 in the championship. And we'll take a look at how everything else kicks off. Sasha Vassner does get the move done on the last lap of this race. Other battles still kicking off up and down the order. We're going to have one final drag race between a few of these cars. We've got Mattia Mex, a Croatian, trying to pursue Nico Pendon down towards the chicane. Number 22 car versus the number 20, but that BMW's been mighty in a straight line. I think Mattia's just a little bit too far back, but it's all kicking off with McLaren versus Ferrari and the McLaren versus the Porsche in the background. Walsingham and Jardier trying to progress on this final lap of the race. Walsingham makes his bet around the outside. Jardier's going to have to do the same. Jardier's got the move done already before the braking zone. Walsingham isn't so lucky, gets shown the grass, and I don't think Jardier's going to be quite close enough. He's trying to use the momentum. He looks towards the outside. The man that was P2 for so long in this race, he took a surprise pole position, and now he can have a drag race towards the line with Michael Frey behind, and he will hold him off at the end. But it's only P17 and P18 for the McLarens that's trying to recover at the closing stages of this race. Fempor unable to get the move done on Marco Wong. Same for Jonathan Clifford versus Jan Drexler. And I think with our last few drivers coming towards the line, that is just about that for Bathurst Race Circuit. A rather unconventional stream, it must be said. But whilst I still do have the majority of your guys' attention, do not go anywhere. Do hang around for the next 10 to 15 minutes or so while we wrap up this one, because I do have exciting things to share with you in terms of what lies ahead for Season 12. So do not go anywhere as we look to wrap this one out, as Dizdarovic finishes his race, and with that is the last car, or penultimate car, I think, to cross the line in the end. So a fantastic effort from the entire grid. And to Damon, a very nice question. I'm generally doing very well. Of course, I've had the pleasure of broadcasting an entire season of the Case King Pro Series, which is a fantastic, fantastic thing. We've had milestones achieved over here on the Twitch channel, the YouTube channel, after just 6 weeks of broadcasting over here on Twitch. And whilst I still did get to enjoy a very good amount of action here on the circuit this evening, I must admit it has been a little bit of a tricky one, but at least, if nothing else, we have some wonderful, wonderful people joining me in the chat who I can now actually talk to directly. We were out of sync by about 25 minutes at one point during the race, but lovely to have you here. And also lovely to have Grantis Carreras sitting in the interview room already, so we'll look to bring him in. And also George Boothby is joined. Fantastic. We're getting a fantastic conglomeration of people. Maybe we even get Marco Bischoff if we are lucky as well, our top 3 finishers. But we will bring in the man that won today's race, taking on the mountain. Not an easy task, but in the end, other than maybe a slight scare with that BMW on the final lap, you made it look easy, Grantis. Big congratulations to you, and you must be pretty delighted to wrap up the season with that one.
Yeah, thank you very much. Not long time no see. Haven't won a race for the whole season, but yeah, feels really good to finally win there. As well, had a really good pace. So yeah, it was kind of fun first few laps with Jardia there. Some good battles, and Tristan was quite competitive from both of us. Unfortunately, he had a moment, so we couldn't like finish the race closely. Have a fightable race. That would have been really epic. But yeah, I'm still very happy with my performance. Kept out of walls and made pretty much no mistakes. So yeah, very happy to finish the season in that way.
Yeah, of course. It became the norm. It became familiar territory seeing you at the top step of the podium, or at least very much on the podium. It seems to have been, in the last couple of races, that kind of, the Grantis of old, the one that kind of, we've got so used to seeing being right up there every time competing for the wins. You've started to find that form again. Is that confidence that's come with the car, or do you think it's just the tracks that have suited you? What's really allowed you to kind of bring that skill set into this McLaren in the last couple of races?
Yeah, it was like maybe the car tracks are a bit better, maybe for me, maybe a bit better tracks for McLaren that suits my driving style a bit more. But yeah, got used to the McLaren a bit more, of course. The more you drive, obviously, the better you get, especially with that car, the only car that I drive. So yeah, really happy that I got used to it finally and have some pace now. So hopefully next season I'll be more competitive and fight for the wins more often.
So do I get the inkling that you'll be looking to carry that McLaren over into season 12 then?
Yeah, probably. It's my main car and I really like it, so yeah.
Fantastic stuff. So we're already getting insight over the sort of things that we can come to expect into season 12, and of course also other things to look forward to here in the Pro Series, because we will have the custom BOP being put into action in season 12 as well, and we'll go through some more details with all of that in just a moment. But fantastic, exciting stuff on the horizon, and great momentum for you to look to take forward into season 12. So a big congratulations to you, Grantis. Fantastic to see you back in familiar territory at the top step of the podium, and a big thank you for popping in for an interview as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, no problem, and hopefully I see you next season more often.
I have a feeling we'll be talking quite a bit more next season.
Yeah, let's hope.
Thanks a lot, Grantis.
Yeah, see you.
Great there to talk to our race winner, and we'll also look to bring in this man, George Boothby, starting from P40 on the grid. Obviously, a bit of a different day in the office, Hugh, but gaining 35 positions around the mountain. What was that like in the cockpit of that McLaren?
That was really fun, because today and this week I've been practicing for the SRO LAN event, which is this weekend, so that's like really taken all my priorities. So I was contemplating, should I do this race, should I not? But it's LFM Pro Series. It's like the best. It's the one we all look forward to. So I had to, and especially at Bathurst. So I didn't have too much prep. So I'm not gonna maybe mess around with Jardy and Grantis, because I know they're fighting for actual positions in the championship, and I don't want to take some off them. Maybe I want to try and help them out a little bit. So thought, you know what, let's do a last to first challenge, see what we can do. So yeah, it went far better than I expected. Obviously a lot of people ended up crashing, which always helps, but yeah, I had a lot of risky moments, a lot of scary times overtaking people, but most of the drivers were super clean, super fair, and it's just what you expect when you race in this series. So it's just always fun, and yeah, P5, super happy with that.
I can imagine you are, and also it's one of those circuits where kind of when those when those other drivers are crashing around you, it's kind of a blessing and a curse at times, isn't it? Because if it's somewhere on the circuit where you have somewhere to go, you may get about 5 free positions. If you're a bit less fortunate, you can end up being stuck in a traffic jam and half your car's fallen off. But yeah, at least thankfully from your perspective, you managed to kind of weave your way through the chaos and keep on pushing and execute a fantastic drive. And those lap times at the end were something pretty special as well, and I think were sort of quite the statement of your pace in this race. So yeah, an incredible drive from you, and of course big congratulations to you, P2 in the championship. Obviously Tinko just was that little bit too good across the season. It was just out of reach, but still you must be pretty happy to come away with P2 in the championship.
Yeah, I'm super happy to get P2. Tinko was just on another level this championship. He had a quick car, quick driver, and it's like you add that together and he was unbeatable. He was so good, so hats off to him. But yeah, next season it's all going to be mixed up. We got this custom bot coming. I'm really excited for that. I think it's going to really shake up the championship, and hopefully it'll be a little less of a one car sort of, I mean, this season was just McLaren's a lot of the time. Even though I think over the whole season it probably wasn't the quickest car, but it's one that I guess is like the newest car, very popular, lots of setups for it, quite easy to get your head around. So maybe next season with a custom bot, people can be a bit more diverse, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely, and you've given me the perfect segue to go onto that topic when we round off this interview. So a big thank you for that. But yeah, absolutely, that's what we're, that's what this whole custom BOP is about, to really help kind of, because here in this championship, we've proven time and time again, we've got the talent, we've got the exceptional racing, the racing standards, the professional, essence and environment that this championship provides. But the one thing that has sometimes been a little bit robbed of is that diversity between the cars, and that's what we're all really looking forward to. So on that note, we kind of got given a bit of a heads up from your teammate Grantus. He's looking to carry over this McLaren into season 12. Are you going to be looking to do the same, or are you going to kind of hang back, see how things maybe play out over the next couple of weeks or so, and then make a decision from there on what your pick for season 12 is?
I think I'm still going to stay with the McLaren. I just really like driving it. Really like driving it. At first, it was my nightmare car, but then they made a few changes to it just to help the drivability. And I just really like driving it. I like the way it feels, and like I can extract a lot of the pace out of it. So you can have I guess you can have the whole field pick McLarens if they want. But at the end of the day, if you can be the top McLaren, that's always the thing you want to aim for, right? So I'm glad I was able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, and you did that. You did that very convincingly across your championship campaign. P2 in the championship, still a mighty effort from yourself, and yes, and a big congratulations to you again on that result and that immense drive that you put on around the mountain today. So thank you so much, George, for popping in for another interview. Lovely to talk to you, and look forward to seeing how you get on in that car again going into season 12.
Thank you so much, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too. Take care, man.
Thanks a lot, George.
Bye-bye.
Fantastic there to speak to a couple of drivers that have had some fantastic days in the cockpit and have extracted some mighty performance out of their McLarens. We'll have a quick look through the results from today. And then I will hang about no longer in wasting any further time of bringing you up to speed with some of the latest and greatest news from what Season 12 has to offer. So if I can just do a little bit of that, and there we go. So you can see Grant Correct is taking victory ahead of Marco Bischoff, cementing his P3 in the standings. De Campo taking a podium, great result from him, with Carpen and George Boothby gaining 35th position. Cody Sherratt for the Genesis Esports fans takes P6. Fanta, Hagstrom, Anufria, Vitshalker, Shulk, Mex, Addison. I didn't quite catch the other names. Going down to about P13. We have Proel, Walsingham, Jardier after that very disappointing moment at Forest Elbow. He must be gutted. Drops to P18. Frey, Drexler, Clifford, Crone, Wong, Poor, Rogel, Hoffman, Bletton, Laxon, Scott, Krauk to the end of the top 30, with Badowski, Vassner, Smith, Dizdarovic, Egger, Porcio, Mahoney, Cavazza and Manson and Tranquilbach as your unfortunate final 3 DNFing from this race. And some of those other drivers still soldiering on to the end, which is a very commendable thing in itself. And it was Valentin Barrier, Addison Barrier and Penman from those P13 to P15 positions at the very end of the race. I won't quite read out the DM that I've been sent. Marco Bischoff is potentially lagging a bit behind for an interview. He may not be with us for an interview. He's fine. He's just preoccupied. We'll say that much. But big congratulations to him for P3 in the championship standings. Now, I've been teasing you for quite a while over the prospects of information that we have for Season 12. And for those of you that have stuck around to the end, I shall deliver on said news indeed. And the first bit of news I have is that for Season 12, this is how your calendar will be looking, where Kyalami, Paul Ricard, Mount Panorama, Hungaroring, Donington Park, Spa-Francorchamps, Nürburgring, Barcelona, Silverstone, Suzuka, Monza, and Watkins Glen will form the calendar. And these wonderful graphics brought to you by VCO Esports, where you can also get some graphics for yourself and any businesses that you are interested in. So a big thank you to them putting this wonderful little graphics together for us. And look at that track list. We have some fan favourites on there, some tricky ones indeed, and that's where the Pro Series is going to be heading off to week in, week out for next season. So obviously kicking off in just a couple of weeks' time, because during those couple of weeks, as we kind of alluded to on a couple of occasions in previous streams and in the space of the last 10 to 15 minutes or so, about the custom BOP that is making its way over to Season 12. And as exciting as that is, we do need your help, and we would love your help. If you head over to the lowfuelmotorsport.com website, you can see a section, there's a whopping great banner at the top there advertising the Hot Laps challenge over there, and that is the way that you can contribute to making Season 12 of LFM in the Pro Series and just across the entire platform the best it has ever been. You can compete for some fantastic prizes brought to you by CaseKing.de, where they are supporting all of the tracks that have been added into that Hot Lap Challenge, where we're looking to arrange that BOP. So you've even got some extra incentives for some fantastic goodies that you can pick up along the way for your efforts. So it's a win-win situation. You have some chances to get some fantastic prizes, and if nothing else, that you will be a part of an amazing group that are looking to try to make the world of ACC even better than it has ever been. Of course, we have been treated to some wonderful, wonderful things over recent weeks and months and years with this game, but LFM, without tooting its own horn too much, I think has been a bit of a game changer over on this platform, and it's continuing to try to make it an even better step forward from where we sit right now. So you can get involved in that one. We would love to have as many of you involved in that as possible, so we can hit Season 12 with the best platform that we have ever had. So do head over to the website, get involved in that, and amongst all of that, I think Mavix has made his way over into the comms box, as after being briefly preoccupied, has joined us for an interview to wrap up what has been a fantastic season for yourself. Of course, came off the back of a victory last week at Nürburgring, got yourself a P2 in the end today, which was bit tricky and dicey at times, but in the end quite a comfortable road to the finish, and you must be pretty happy to round off your season in P3, Marco.
Yeah, sorry for my late. I was on the toilet after the race. But now I'm here. Yeah, it was a season like a roller coaster, I would say. Some races were not very good, but overall it was all about, I would say, consistency. And at the end, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised about P3, but yeah, it's a great result in the end for me. Especially the last two races were very good, and yeah, now I'm very happy.
Yeah, absolutely, and you had some pretty tricky moments to deal with in that one. Very as we would expect in any Pro Series race, but especially around Bathurst. Lap 1 was exceptionally busy, but I think probably I imagine the scariest moment, unless there was any shenanigans that we didn't quite catch on the screen for you, was probably when there was that coming together in front of you, where you had Delphanta going flying off one way, Walsingham going flying on, and you kind of found your way vaguely managing to negotiate your way through the middle, and you came out of it pretty well. I think you got a little bit of damage from what I could see from my side. But what was that heart in mouth moment like from your perspective in the cockpit?
Yeah, it was a tricky one. I had 10 seconds of damage, and I didn't know what to do in this moment. Should I repair? Should I not repair? So at the end, I didn't repair the damage, and I think it was the right decision, because when I repaired the damage, I came back on the track maybe on P7 or P6. So I think the right decision was to not repair and take the track position. The pace was not the best to the end, but it was, I think it was even to De Campo behind me. So yeah, as I said, I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, fantastic negotiated in what was an extremely busy moment for you. So yeah, and in the end, managing to come through all of that chaos, take a P2 finish in the final race of the season. So fantastic stuff from you. And obviously, we've spoken a little bit already about the custom BOP heading into season 12. And obviously, you've been one of the drivers kind of adapting to a new car across the season. Seem to have kind of really dialed in the pace with that Lamborghini piece by piece. But of course, for many a season prior, you were very much at one with the Porsche, and with BOP on the horizon, potentially that potential questions or opportunities surrounding whether or not you head back to that car or you stick with the Lamborghini are suddenly rolling around in my head. So, can we get any insight into your thoughts and plans going into season 12 in car selection, or are you going to keep your cards close to your chest on this one?
I don't really know. I would say the Lambo is at the moment the Lambo is a better car for me, because it feels more natural for me, and the pace is better overall. When you look at the whole season, the Lambo is the better car at the moment. But yeah, with the custom BOP, it is a new one for all of us. So I hope it will be more competitive, like it is really competitive at the moment, but the whole field will be just a lot of closer than with a custom BOP. So yeah, it will be very interesting to see which car or which driver is the best with the custom BOP, and yeah, I don't know which car I will choose the next season. But I think it will be not the Porsche.
Interesting to know. Well, we'll see how it all plays out in the end. But yeah, fantastic to get a little bit of insight from your perspective on that one. And yeah, it comes as no surprise in terms of your thoughts with the Lamborghini, because yeah, it's become quite clearly apparent with a P1 and a P2 in the last two races from you about how you've been getting more and more comfortable with that car. So exciting and interesting things on the horizon going into season 12. So once again, big congratulations to you, Marco, on not just today's race, but over your championship campaign, getting a victory to your ever-growing tally, and also congratulations to you on being the first ever person to get the Alien license on the LFM platform. A major achievement in that, so a massive congratulations to you there as well. And yeah, and look forward to seeing you back in season 12.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, we're looking forward to the next season. Thank you.
Fantastic. Cheers, Marco.
Ciao.
Brilliant stuff there to hear from all of our well, we had 2 out of 3 of our podium finishers, and we had 2 out of 3 of our sort of championship prize winners. We spoke to Tinko last week. Obviously, he didn't take part today. He didn't need to. In the end, he did all the hard work in the first 11 races and earned himself a well-deserved break. It'll be very interesting to see how Tinko approaches season 12 as well. If we do have him back for that one. But yes, plenty of exciting things on the horizon from the calendar, the custom BOP on the way for Season 12, and just ever more goodness that the Case King Pro Series and LFM has to offer. So a big thank you everybody so much for all of the support throughout Season 11, where of course we started over on YouTube, we finished over here on Twitch. Of course the VODs will be making their way, as always, over to YouTube. This one might be a bit scrappier than normal, but we'll see what we can do. Yeah, and like I say, you know, we hit some fantastic milestones in such a short space of time, and it's been an absolute privilege to bring you coverage once again of another season of the Pro Series. So thank you everybody so much for warm support. Thank you so much for those that did stick around in some rather trying times this evening with the stream. We got there in the end. Unfortunately, we only had something vaguely stable for the last 10 to 15 minutes, but we were rewarded with some fantastic action, drama, and driving, as always, that the Pro Series has to deliver, as well as all the fantastic things on the horizon going into Season 12. And as much as I would love to have you a part of it in the chat once again going into Season 12, I know that just like myself, that a lot of you will want to get involved in some of the driving yourself and want to see exactly what LFM is about after what you've caught on the screen this evening. And if you want to see about that, head over to the lowfuelmotorsport.com website. We can get yourself signed up, get yourself a license, and you can work your way up through the ranks and compete for some fantastic prizes across an array of different championships and categories, where of course the Pro Series will be returning for Season 12, but there is also the daily racing platform of course as well, where end of season you can be in with a chance for some nice things there as well. And if the world of ACC GT3 isn't quite your thing, do not worry, because we also of course have R Factor 2 on the platform as well, where there are open wheelers, prototypes, touring cars, the Nordschleife if you want an even bigger challenge than Bathurst. I think that's about the only circuit really around the globe that gives the mountain a challenge for that title, and you can do all sorts of things over there as well, and maybe even with some other things on the way in the near future as well, so do keep an eye on all of that. And if you also want to stay additionally in touch with the world of LFM, then do consider joining the Discord server as well, our ever-growing community, where we share lots of the latest and greatest over on the server. And if you just want to share all your love of sim racing, real racing, or just fancy just being a part of a nice bunch of people, really, then also do consider joining us over there. It'd be lovely to have you there as well. And if you have enjoyed at times what was potentially slightly compromised or limited action and footage from this evening, do consider hitting a follow on the channel as we embark on another journey heading into Season 12, where more and more goodness, hopefully at slightly better quality and standard than what we had this evening, we'll be looking to kick things off in just a couple of weeks or so, where we have some fantastic things on the horizon. As a final reminder and call to action to those that I still have here, if you want to shape the way in which Season 12 plays out and also want to get yourself in with a chance of getting some fantastic prizes and goodies brought to you by caseking.de, then do get involved with the Hot Lap Challenge, where you can help shape the BOP that we have going into Season 12 as LFM looks to tackle this ambitious but incredibly exciting evolution of sim racing here on ACC. So definitely get involved in that as well. Every single one of your contributions will make things even better and give us a better experience of what we already have come to enjoy over the last few seasons. So do get involved in that. But thank you everybody so much for watching tonight and across the entirety of Season 11. Be a couple of weeks. I know that sometimes we have some regulars that organise their pizza schedule around the Pro Series, so we may have to negotiate that for 1 week at least. But we'll be back in a couple of weeks here once again for the Pro Series in Season 12. I look forward to seeing you all then. But for tonight then, it's goodbye.